from the Royal Albert Hall. For the past 9 days, all our thoughts have been with Michael Watson, still critically ill after his fight with Chris Eubank. Our cameras were there that night, and we're here once again to see Lennox Lewis defending his British and European heavyweight titles against Glen McCrory, the former world cruiserweight champion from the Northeast. I know many of you feel this fight shouldn't be taking place and that we shouldn't be televising it, and I can sympathise with that. It's been a very hard decision for ITV Sport, but the fight is going on, and for us to curtail or abandon our coverage, well, that wouldn't solve anything. I've been joined here by Gary Mason and Jim Watt. Gentlemen, your thoughts on what's happened to boxing in the last week? You first of all, Gary.
Well, I think a lot of people that are generally not interested in fighters or actually what goes on in fighting have found an excuse to make their voices heard. And that's what they've done. They've just jumped on it to make a load of noise, as they always do.
Well, there have been tragedies in boxing over the years, thankfully not too many tragedies, but last week's tragedy was on live television. Everybody in the country saw that. There have been other tragedies just as bad. Fighters have actually died because of them. Boxing has survived through. It was a terrible accident, but I think we have to look upon it as an accident. It's not the normal in the fight game. These things can happen, it did happen, but it's not the normal. I think the safety standards in boxing are as high as they can possibly be and still be calling it professional boxing. I don't really think there's much we can do to change boxing.
Let's look ahead to the fight coming up. Gary, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've been trying to work it out with myself. I've been trying to give Glenn a winning chance, but I thought, well, Lennox is a bigger man, naturally stronger man, and he's got the ambition, which I think is going to be important in this fight, whereas Glenn has been to the top and he's trying to climb up again. And at that stage, when things start getting a bit like really hard, he might not find it there to dig deep, whereas Lewis is unbeaten on the way up, so he'll have all the courage and inspiration he needs.
Quick comment from you, Jim.
Yeah, well, Glenn didn't cut it as a heavyweight before. He's more mature now, more experienced. He can probably put up a show, but it depends, does he really believe in himself?
Thanks, gents. We'll be back with the fight very shortly. And welcome back to the Royal Albert Hall. Let's take a closer look at the two fighters. Lennox Lewis, the unbeaten champion, and the challenger, Glen McCrory. He's a really popular fella from Anfield Plain in County Durham. McCrory's been a world champion at cruiserweight. He beat the African Patrick Lumumba on a wild night in his native northeast 2.5 years ago. Making that weight, though, was an awful task. McCrory is much comfier as a heavy. He's always been a good trainer. He's adopted an army-style regime for this one, living the life of an infantryman with the Green Howards at Catterick for the last month. My feeling is he'll retire if things don't go his way tonight.
I've never been fitter. This is probably the biggest challenge of my life. It's a very big fight. But I'm as ready as I could ever be. I could never be any fitter. I could never be any stronger. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting there and do my best.
Lennox Lewis boxed for Canada in the Seoul Olympics, winning a gold at super heavyweight. In his last fight, he dispatched a former world champion, Mike Weaver, making it 16 fights, 16 wins. Lewis says he's a man on a mission. He represented Canada because his mum emigrated when he was just 12 years of age. Gradually, the British public have taken to this quiet, dignified fighter.
This is a next step up. Glen McCrory is a stepping stone for me, and I'm going to go in there and prove it. He feels that he can come from a cruiserweight to a heavyweight, and everything's going to be all nice and cheery. But I'm gonna help educate in heavyweight class.
At the weigh-in this lunchtime, Lewis, aged 26, looked very relaxed before his first defence.
Lennox Lewis, 16 stone, 7 pounds.
McCrory, 27 last week, is a big outsider. He went to the scales wearing his jeans, but he's still giving away a lot of weight.
Official weight for Glen McCrory is 15 stone, 7 pounds.
Both fighters are in the ring, all set to go. Your commentators will be Jim Watt and Reg Guttridge. First of all, the ring announcer, Mick Goodall.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event of the evening. Frank Maloney for Championship Enterprises is proud to present the contest of 12 3-minute rounds, sponsored by the Daily Sport and the Sunday Sport, to decide the heavyweight championship of Great Britain and Europe. Introducing in the blue corner, wearing the red trunks from Stanley, County Durham.
So the referee then is John Coyle. Now this is under European rules. That's the 10-point must system. That's 10 and then 9 and the appropriate number to the lose of the round. That's normally beyond 8. I'm surprised Glen McCrory's 15-11. I thought he'd come in perhaps over 16 stone, but Lennox Lewis 16-7. He only weighed 16-3 when he defeated Gary Mason in the 7th round at Wembley last March. Well, Glen's an articulate sort of a fellow, and he's talked a good fight. Now let's see if he can do something with it. I think Lewis will want to establish himself the authority right away, and he's certainly doing that. Now, he didn't do this against Mike Weaver last time up. Oh, those bangs around the ribs. He was beaten in the Cruiserweight Championship, remember, Glen McCrory, with a body punch, but that was very weight weakened. At only 13 stone 8 those days. Well, we've seen on ITV nearly all of Lennox Lewis's fights. This is the liveliest start he's had, Jim, really, although he has had some one-round wins.
Well, I think tonight Reggie considers he's in with a cruiserweight. There's no reason he can't match straight in here and get down to business. I don't think he feels McCrory has enough power to trouble him. I mean, I think he wants to intimidate McCrory as soon as he possibly can, and he might just have managed that.
Well, he had a 58-second win at the Albert Hall last year. He's had 4 in the one round, but I think this is... McCrory showed a bit of guts there. He took some good shots on the chin and got himself back. Don't hold to McCrory and going for Lewis.
Lewis just seems so much bigger and stronger already, Reggie, doesn't he?
Beating a man of Mike Weaver's caliber, admittedly very much a veteran, but he did it with a perfect textbook punch, a right-hander in Lake Tahoe. Not getting out of the way of McCrory's. Plenty of guts though. Normally he boxes a bit and can slip punches, but he can't this one. He's catching him with every kind of punch.
See, Lewis,
a minute to go.
Lewis has nothing to worry about what's coming back his way, Reg, and he's just moving right in and doing as he likes so far. He's drawn some blood already from one of those uppercuts.
He's throwing some artillery at him there, Lewis, isn't he? Uppercuts, overarm punches. 4 marks from McCrory. He's hanging in there, but for how long?
Reggie, he'll have to be more mobile. He can't cover up and stand his ground. He's going to have to move.
He thinks that was the bell, the referee. I thought I heard the bell there, though, Jim. I know it isn't. It's 21 seconds to go. It looked as though he was going to dive in, although I think he was going to pull him off the corner there, Jim.
Just as the referee moved over, McCrory threw a couple of little punches, maybe changed his mind. But this can't continue much longer, Reg. McCrory is not mobile enough. He'll have to use his legs, but already he's feeling the pace.
It's the roughest I've seen Lewis, I tell you that. And they're cheering, actually, McCrory surviving, I think, more than Lewis's murderous round there. Well, gentleman Glen on the gown there, on the tunics there of the seconds, and he certainly is. There was plenty of guts going in there, wasn't there? He's only had one recent fight as a heavyweight, and I wondered whether he really had sufficient credentials. But when it comes to the heart, he's got plenty of it. And in replay, Jim.
Yeah, well, Lewis just doing completely as he pleases. That was the uppercut that started the blood from the nose. It's always difficult for a cruiserweight to come up and challenge a heavyweight, especially an up-and-coming heavyweight coming towards his peak. You see, Reg, Lewis is just moving in, doing as he pleases, not the slightest worried what's coming back from McCrory, just totally dominating the action. This can't continue much longer.
Well, you never know the way any heavyweight contest can turn around, but it certainly looks most unlikely. He's looking over to the corner and nodding there, Lewis, getting orders from the seconds. And the Americans have said, well, we think this kid might be the best on the block of the young fellas coming up. And he's out to prove it, because he's already been half promised a job. That's what pro boxers call getting a contest on the Tyson Holyfield show on November the 8th. Oh, the right hand uppercut did it. And John Coyle's showing the finger count as well to make sure that he understands it perfectly. Get a mandatory 8.
McCrory's managing to prevent the clean punches landing, but as soon as Lewis lands cleanly, I think he's going to be out of there, because he just has too much strength, too much power for him.
McCrory's been saying that Lewis hasn't really fought anybody that has his ability, but Lewis has taken the play away and the fight away from him, and a long right hand. Now that was a replica of the one that he caught Mike Weaver with, and I don't think he's going to make this count now. 9, and he's out in the act of rising, they call that, and the referee was quite right to count McCrory out in the second round. Well, he gave it all he's got there just in that last half minute, Jim. There was a great fight back by McCrory, but he was hopelessly outpunched.
Well, you have to say, a very impressive action from Lewis. I mean, McCrory called himself a heavyweight. He came into a challenge for a heavyweight title. Lewis went about the job as a heavyweight should. He parcelled him up, never allowed McCrory into the fight at any time, completely dominated him, then got him out of there. Thankfully, McCrory didn't suffer too much as far as punishment is concerned.
So that's hard as well for what they call the cut man there. Jimmy Tibbs is in the corner, who of course was with Michael Watson last week. So look at those powerful shoulders. Well, he's carrying the sort of hopes of the nation on those shoulders, isn't he? We haven't had a heavyweight champion since Bob Fitzsimmons, and he never fought in this country. Cornishman. So taking the plaudits, Lennox Lewis, and rightly so. And as we look at the replays now, this is the first knockdown, Jim.
Yeah, see, you have to be troubled by an opponent's punches. If you're not, then you just go in and do exactly as you please. And a good little shot. The first clean shot really that landed was the one that troubled McCrory. Brave enough to come up off the floor, try to get back into the match, but he didn't have the artillery. That one just whiskered by, just caught the edge of his chin.
Yeah,
and
that was, as I said, Jim, as I said, that was almost like the Weaver punch. I mean, he's got that right hand, like poleaxing punch. You see, bingo, it just caught him on the side of the chin, and over he went. Well, we've had some chances at Britain's fighting for the championship of the world a long way. Gunnar Moore, Jack Palmer, Tommy Farr, Don Cockle, Brian London twice, Henry Cooper, Joe Bugner, Richard Dunn, and Frank Bruno twice. Now, can this fellow make it? He was born in West Ham, reared in Canada.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 1 minute 30 seconds of round 2, McCrory having failed to beat the count, the undefeated heavyweight champion of Great Britain and the world.
So worked up a sweat. But really that was about all, and gets the European belt. John Morris, the Secretary of the Boxing Board of Control, who's represented as steward for the European Boxing Union on this contest, and he gets the Lonsdale belt replaced, and it'll, certainly as far as Europe's concerned, it's going to take some special heavyweight to try and knock him off the pedestal. And there's McCrory now. Sad for him as well. I think his wife Mandy is asking him to get out the game. He's got so many other things to do: acting, running a bar, modelling, a whole bit of TV commentating, and he's very good at that too. So with so many belts around, he looks almost like a bandit. So let's get another opinion then from the man who know one of these days might shift him, Frank Bruno.
Frank, what did you think of Lennox Lewis's performance?
Impressive, you know, pretty impressive. The referee could have stopped holding a little bit, but it was pretty impressive.
Now, he started better than I've ever seen him before.
Yeah, usually he starts very, very slow, Gary, you know what I mean? But this time, I'm not taking nothing away from Glen McCrory, you know. He was a cruiserweight, he had one fight as a heavyweight, so I think he should have had a couple of more fights. I'm just glad he wasn't hurt after the Michael Watson case and everything was okay.
Yes, I mean, people watching at home would think, well, that wasn't much of a match, really.
It wasn't much of a match, but, you know, I'm just glad that everything's okay and he's healthy and he's on his feet and everything's okay.
Just dealing with Glen McCrory, presumably he should retire now, shouldn't he?
Yeah, that's a natural thing for people to say, you know what I mean, that he should retire, you know what I mean? It's rude for people to say that he retired because he's a fighter, he's got a mortgage to pay and he's got a lot of bills to pay, he's got a wife and he's got kids, so...
But we are talking about health and he's got nowhere to go.
Yeah, you are talking about health, Gary, you know what I mean? But boxing, we all know that boxing can give, you know, not give you bad health, it can be bad, driving can be bad, everything can be bad for you, Gary.
Right, let's talk about Lennox Lewis. Now, is this boxer world class, real world class?
I'm not too sure, you know what I mean? He's got to have someone standing up there in front of him what can hit back and stand up, but they're guiding him at the right pace at the moment, so we just got to wait and see. Only time will tell.
Will Frank Bruno be the man up there who tests him?
I'll tell you, Gary, I've been at the ring for 2.5 years. I've got to get my first fight off the ground, and then you ask me that question about a couple of months' time, and then I'll answer it a bit more better, Gary.
Well, let me just ask this. Let me sort of look forward. Supposing you come through the tests, we hope you do, and I'm sure you will over the first few fights. Do you see yourself fighting Lennox Lewis? Because he's claiming to be the best heavyweight around here. He's the European and British champion.
Somewhere along the line, it'd be a roadblock, Gary, you know.
How would you fight Lennox Lewis then?
I can't really tell you on television, you know. I'll keep my secrets close to myself, you know.
You are at the moment. I'm trying to get him out of you.
Right, yeah. I thought the boxing news banned you from being around there.
The British Boxing Board of Control, just for tonight, actually. It's fairly sensitive, so I'll be talking to the boxers in the dressing room a bit later, but I'm getting the opinions out of you at the moment because we're delighted to see you around, bubbling again, and obviously itching to get back into the ring.
Very, very itching, you know, Gary.
Right, now I've been disappointed in Lennox Lewis in the past, but I have to say that...
But you've been disappointed in so many boxers in the past, you know what I mean? Every time you get up there, you make a name for yourself being disappointed.
Well,
you was
I'm in a situation now where...
You're disappointed in that one, you know, but still, you're making a name for yourself there,
Well, I'm not
Gary,
trying to do that. I'm trying to look at things analytically. Now, Lewis, if the British public can keep faith with him, presumably has now got a really good chance of going forward next World Championship.
You know what I mean? He's done everything what's asked of him, you know? So he can't do no more than that. You've done everything what your editor tells you or your governor tells you to do, you know? But sometimes you get a little bit naughty.
Do you think so?
Yeah,
I'm being kind to you tonight, though.
Yeah, you're very kind, you know? I've got to buy you a drink.
Not at the moment because you're in training. But with Lewis now, he's going to America. The one worry over here is, are we going to lose Lennox Lewis to the American scene? Because there's some talk about him signing a 4-fight deal with the Duvers.
Yeah, 4-fight deal with the Duvers, but the man's got to, you know what I mean, make his bread or make his call wherever it takes him. If it takes him America, it takes him America. You know, that question you got to ask him. You can't ask me that question. You got to ask Frank Maloney or Lennox Lewis himself.
You've had 2 shots at the world title. I mean, is this the country to breed heavyweights, or do you in the end have to go to America?
I think in this country they're getting very, very hungry, the heavyweights, you know, because like with the recession and there's young guys, they're breeding them very, very fast up and down the country, Birmingham, Wolverhampton, London, Tottenham, all over the place. So in a couple of years' time, you never know, Gary.
Good, I've enjoyed sparring with you tonight.
Thank you very much. Cheers. The ball weren't bad in picking you not to go up there, but you've been very cool today, Gary. You take it easy.
Well, thank you for calling me Gary and not Harry. It's a nice change.
No problem. You look like Harry with them glasses, but you're a bit more bigger than Harry.
Yeah, I certainly am.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Good,
nice one, Gary.
Good to join you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah, decent little scrap, that one, between Gary Newborn and Frank Bruno. Went on a bit longer than Glen McCrory and Lennox Lewis, but on a serious side, delighted to see Glen McCrory up and taking notice and congratulating Lennox Lewis on a fine performance. We have more boxing action to come. We're going to get the views of Gary Mason, and as Gary Newborn said, he's going to be talking to Lennox Lewis. That's all to come. Rejoin us for that. And welcome back to the Royal Albert Hall. Lennox Lewis has retained his British and European heavyweight titles, stopping Glen McCrory very decisively in the second round. Gary Mason, I think you always felt that the fight was going to go that way.
Yes, well, it was a predictable win. Lewis did what he knew he could do. He went out there knowing that McCrory was a cruiserweight and didn't have the power to trouble him. And you saw, by the way, the fast start, he went out, took it straight to him. He was bombing away. And the one thing is, when you're a heavyweight, if your opponent can't punch, you have no respect for him. And Lennox Lewis showed that there when he went out.
Just before we have a look at the action, you fought Lennox Lewis. In fact, he finished your career, didn't he, earlier this year. Have you seen a vast improvement in Lennox Lewis tonight?
Well, I felt the improvement in Lennox Lewis on March the 6th.
Right.
I generally didn't believe in Lennox Lewis until then. And even again tonight, although he won this fight, but it's very scrappy. Lennox is a sort of opponent a sort of fighter, I think, that rises to the occasion. He didn't finish Glen conclusively, but because it was a bit scrappy, but he seems to be that sort of fighter. When he fought me, he fought a complete different style of fight, which was the right style for that fight.
Now, Gary, I said earlier on, I thought the British public was slowly taking to Lennox Lewis. I know you raised an eyebrow at that, and the reaction of some of the fans here was a little bit cool towards him, wasn't it?
Well, what it was, Lennox is considered as a foreigner that's come in, and like he's beaten me just at a time when I think people are beginning to accept me. And then he's gone on and he's fighting Glen, and everybody loves Glen. And then the next one, then all of a sudden Frank's coming back, so they think, well, Frank's our man, let's jump on behind Frank because let's get Frank to bash up the Canadian sort of thing. That's how people are seeing it. But I think, I generally, after watching Lennox again tonight, and even from a biased point of view, which I will have obviously, I think Lennox could well go on to be a real good contender, because people say they still consider him a novice, but when you think that he's beaten someone who's had 35 fights and didn't lose any of them and could punch, and like he went through that and he did beat me, regardless of what I think or anybody else thinks, he did actually beat me on paper. So I think he's ready for most things.
We'll hear more from you in a moment, Gary, but let's go down into the dressing rooms because Gary Newborn is now talking to Lennox Lewis.
Talking to you nice and early, Lennox, because the fight finished nice and early from your point of view. Why did you start so quickly tonight?
Well, because I had a lot of confidence going into the fight, and I wanted to be taken really seriously. I didn't think that Glen McCrory took me that seriously, so I wanted to prove to him this is what the heavyweight class is all about.
It was the best performance we've seen from you, but did you get extra confidence in starting like that because you were fighting what it was in effect a cruiserweight in the past? Not
really, because I realized because he was a cruiserweight coming up to heavyweight, he would have that added speed. And because my team behind me got me in really good shape, I felt really confident going out there.
Well, we can show you the moments that mattered here in the fight now. And this is the first knockdown. So what are your comments here?
I had him up against the ropes and I knew he would be ducking. So he was really ducking into my uppercuts, and John Davenport always said to me, look at what you see and just react off of it.
Well, this is the finish and your concentration's really there.
Yeah, he said to just keep that jab out there and then throw a left, right. And it was a glancing right hand that hit him right on the chin that ended it all.
Lennox, have you looked at your career and thought, why am I getting all this criticism from people like me and from newspapers you've read and at times the British public? And have you sort of thought, now I've really got to move up a gear?
I've been reading a lot of criticism in the paper. I realize there's a lot of jealous people out there, but I think it's good that I get that criticism because that makes me work really hard. I got criticism going into the Olympics Games, and I won that. I got criticism going into my first professional fight, and I won that. And I think, keep all the critics coming. I like the comments. It just makes me work that harder.
Well, you certainly did the business tonight. Now you're looking forward to America. I mean, there is talk about you going to box in America. There's talk of a 4-fight deal with the Duvers, etc., etc. Are we going to lose you now that we're seeing the best of you?
No, I'm still going to be boxing under the same flag. That's the British flag. And I'm going to go over there and, with all the country behind me and do good over there.
But you are going to box still here in England?
Oh, definitely.
How far away do you think you are from a world title shot?
I would say within a year.
Right. Now, looking at Glen McCrory, I know it's not your business, but what would your advice be to him now? Would you pack it up now if you were him?
If I was Glen McCrory, you know, I wouldn't say pack it up. You know, there's still a lot of heavyweights out there he could beat. You know, it depends on how he feels.
Can I just ask you one final question? I mean, obviously it's a very sensitive week for British boxing, and everybody, including yourself, will be sad about what's happening to Michael Watson. But from a professional's point of view, how have you viewed this week and your own career and your thoughts about it?
You know, it was really sad to see that happen to, especially a nice guy like Mike. And, you know, I made sure I took time out to say a little prayer. It, you know, it opens your eyes a bit about the profession that we're all in. But this is the profession that we've took. And we realize the dangers involved.
Your opinions are always worthwhile because they're considered. Now, what are your considered opinions about your thoughts about the profession you're in?
Basically, I just want to go out there and achieve my goal and then get out of the sport.
Does it worry you, the danger of it?
No, I think it's just an added thing. There's danger to every sport, and you know, it depends God's will, you know, what happens.
Great. Lennox, congratulations tonight. Good performance. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
Lennox Lewis, an excellent performance inside the ring and talking well on behalf of his profession outside it. Gary, when you look at an interview like that, I mean, he comes across as, you know, as a considerate, as a nice guy, as a clean-cut sort of fella. Do you think what's happened here tonight might just tip the scales a little bit his way, and that a few people will go into work tomorrow and say, I tell you what, it's not about that Lennox Lewis?
Yeah, no, yeah, people will do that, but what we must remember that boxing is show business with blood. That's all it is.
Just talking about him and looking at his performance tonight, I know early on we criticised Lennox and we wondered about the power of his jab in particular, and he's really worked hard at that, and he's now got what every potential world heavyweight champion really needs, and that is a real dig with his jab.
Yeah, Lennox's jab is very good. He's got very long arms and a very good reach. I underestimated Lennox's power. I didn't think he had the power, but he has an accumulative effect with the reach and the style, so that makes up for the power. And he's a lot stronger than people imagine he is.
We haven't had a world heavyweight champion this century. Do you share his feelings that he's going to be fighting for that world title within a year?
Yes, after Mike Tyson has fought Evander Holyfield, whenever there is a winner sorted out, they will be looking for a European, because a European is going to bring the money in and bring all the excitement. And a European who's actually won the Olympic gold medal is the biggest draw there is. If one of them fight another American, all the American comes with his gum shield. But a European brings added interest and more money. Remember, this is business. You've got to think where the money's coming from. So Lennox Lewis, ex-Olympic champion, ranked number 6, boom, give him a fight.
Right, Gary, thanks very much indeed. We're going to end the chat there and get some more action in, because one possible opponent for Lennox Lewis, a bit down the line, is Derek Williams, the Commonwealth champion. In fact, he learned his art at the same Wandsworth club as Gary Mason here. Well, his opponent tonight is David Bay. David Bay, 34-year-old American who's been in with some good fighters, including Larry Holmes.
Well, there's certainly a lot of beef truss about this one. Derek Williams, 17 stone 1 in the white trunks, and David Bay of America is 17 stone 9. Well, they really are big guys compared to the old-time heavyweights, and well, he's a bit roly-poly looking, isn't he, David Bay, who once fought Larry Holmes for the Championship of the World, the IBF version, went 10 rounds. That was in '85. So he's had an up-and-down career in, well, in all aspects since then, but certainly been in with the top men. So the Commonwealth heavyweight champion, Derek Williams. Carries the tag of Sweet D Williams. Well, a couple of times he hasn't looked like that against the Frenchman Jean Charnet for the European title. But he's also had some good wins on the record. He also had a long time sparring session with well then really a peak Mike Tyson. He's picking his shots very well, I tell you. And Bay's, well, a big target to catch, all right, Jim, isn't he? But he certainly picked those well, Williams.
Yeah, well, obviously Bay is not going to have very much mobility, the weight he's coming at, so he's obviously just going to march forward with a tight defence. He can't slip the punches, so he's going to block them and hopefully come back with the odd counter. But we've yet to find out if he's come over really to try to defeat Williams, or maybe just pick up a couple of quid. But he's not moving his head nearly enough.
The last time I saw him, he was sparring regularly with Frank Bruno when Bruno was training to fight Mike Tyson. But went home a bit earlier than expected with a damaged rib. Actually, it was the Bruno was training with Tim Witherspoon at that time, not Tyson. He's sort of putting the punches there a bit, the right-hand punch, Williams, Jim.
Yeah, I think Williams is paying this man a little bit of respect because of where he's been. But Bay hasn't shown anything in the first round here that he has too much snap in his performance. He's not the least bit mobile, he's been caught with everything. He's managing to block a few of the punches, but he hasn't really got down to any serious business yet.
Heavy sweat on Williams as well. I know he probably warmed up before he got in there. Old Army Sergeant David Bay, he was a good amateur. He actually claimed 42 first round wins. Well, I think he must have had a few rookies in with him to get all that much. And there's all the facts and figures about Derek Williams. As I said, he's sparred a bit with Mike Tyson as well, and believe it or not, he recently offered a fight with George Foreman, but apparently manager Mike Barrett wanted a little bit too much money for the Americans, so he's sitting that one out. Out for the third round then, and in the white trunks, Derek Williams of Battersea, and the Philadelphian David Bay. You watch Williams in the gymnasium, Jim, and also against Tyson in sparring, and you know he looks as though he's great potential. But I don't know whether he's got some sort of problem with temperament or what with him.
Yeah, well, certainly this contest needs something, and it's up to Williams to supply it. His punching is certainly different class. The beginning of the third round here, Reg, he's standing off Bay a little bit. The punches are cleaner. The jab is going through the target. This is a little bit better.
Yeah, there was more power in that right-hand punch there.
Yeah, but suddenly he's just moved into a different gear. He's beginning to show that he can perform a little bit. The first two rounds I thought were just like a little sparring session. But if he keeps this going, then maybe he can impress a few people. This is certainly better.
Actually using his feet a bit better in training as well. He's a bit static for this one. That's really the first decent retaliation from Bay. He's using that left-hand jab as much as he can, Williams. I dread the thought of saying he's keeping him at bay. I did say I dread the thought.
It's just time for Williams to try something else, either maybe a couple of punches down below the elbow, or maybe feint, try and draw some leads from Bay. Bay is just marching forward with a tight defence in front of his head, so there's not much point throwing punches to the head. You've got to either open up the defence or move the target elsewhere down to the ribcage.
Inside the last minute of the third.
But Williams' punching has been better in this round.
The referee there, I don't know whether you picked that up, he said, come on, throw punches. He didn't want them posing too long. They are professionals getting paid, and fairly well paid too. And he's listened to that, hasn't he, Derek Williams? He likes that. He responded to the orders okay there. Now, he attacked Jimmy Thunder, the New Zealander, in his last contest. Just like this, can he keep it up? Or is Bay still tough enough to stay in there with him?
He's put the man under pressure now, forcing him into mistakes, and now he is completely open. The referee will be stepping in if this keeps up.
Yeah, he's not fighting back at all now, Bay. And is he pleased to hear that bell now, the American? And the seconds are having a bit of a talk to him there, as if he's going to consider not coming out for the next round, it looked like. So, replay there, Jim.
Yeah, well, Williams started performing a little bit better then. He put him under pressure and opened him up. He forced Bay to do some work, and then when Bay had to throw some punches, then Williams were getting home. That was a good burst of punching, good bit of pressure from Williams, but he must sustain that.
And this from a different angle now.
See, well, Williams has proved that he can open the man up, so he has to pick up the next round where he left off. Severe pressure.
The sixth round then of this heavyweight contest, and it's all a bit one-sided with Derek Williams in the white trunks, hardly getting clobbered at all by old soldier David Bay from Philadelphia. And watching this, you wonder, well, he did fight for the championship of the world against Larry Holmes. He's been in with another world champion, Trevor Berbick, and Bone Crusher Smith. But he was outpointed in Australia by Joe Bugner. He's trying to use, we were talking about using the feet a little bit, Jim, at least you were. And, you know, he can be quite mobile for a big man, Derek Williams, at times, but he suddenly gets a bit static, goes down to the other man's level, really.
Yeah, certainly not impressive tonight. When I say use your feet, I mean move to the side of Bay and find some target behind the elbow and to the side of the head. If he just keeps throwing little straight, short punches, Bay's taking the sting out of those on his hands. I mean, his gloves are just cupped in front of his face. If Williams just stepped to the side quickly, it would have the target all the way down the side. Now that's a nice little right hand, but he should be following these punches up. He's just far too one-paced, and it's the wrong pace.
So there's some respect for Bay. I mean, you know, he could have come and taken the money and got out of the fight early. He's taking a bit of a slow going over here, but he's still hanging in there.
Yeah, but
and as you said right at the start, Jim, you know, he can make a man look bad if you're not careful.
Yeah, he's experienced. He knows his way around the ring. He knows what he's doing. But Reggie hasn't done the least thing that you could call clever. He hasn't really posed Williams any problems. He's been right in front of him all the way through. He's given Williams every chance to shine. Williams hasn't shown. He's doing the same things now he was doing in the first round.
And also, I suspect, when he warmed up in the dressing room, just carried on. No, just having a good look there. Now, where do I throw the next punch? Because his right eye, the eyebrow actually of Bray, is swelling quite a bit now. Quite a nasty lump coming up there, Jim. I think this might be stopped by the end of this round.
Well, the swelling seems to be going above the eye. It hasn't come down below the eyebrow to impair his vision, so it would have to get considerably worse, I think, before the referee would stop it. You know, it seems as though his vision is the eyebrow and above where the swelling is. Quite an unusual swelling, as a matter of fact.
It is. It's coming up as we talk. And I would think maybe the cornerman, well, he hasn't won a round. What's the point? But the referee will have a little, do his scorecard and give the seconds a chance. Now, they're going to call him over to the corner. I thought they would. At the end of that round, the sixth round, and Adrian Morgan, well, he certainly can't do anything about that. And he's quite right. It's a nasty swelling. There might be a bit of whistling from the bleachers, as they call it in America, up in the boxes at the Royal Albert Hall, but they can't see the swelling over the eye like that. And it's quite right. I'm delighted that it was stopped. So another win on the record anyway for Derek Williams. This is how we think it might have been caused, Jim.
Yeah, well, Williams started the round with 3 good punches, but then settled down to his old pace again. But I suppose it's safer to get Bay out of there. I feel a bit of swelling.
Well, David Bay carrying a bit of excess baggage through customs. Derek Williams really I think he's got a bit to do before he's a credible opponent for Lennox Lewis. Let's have a word with Lennox's opponent tonight. That's Glen McCrory, and he's talking to Gary.
Glenn, I have to ask you after that hiding, how sore you are at the moment?
A little sore, you know, face. Little bits and bobs. Never had time to really think about it yet.
Well, how are you going to justify to your wife Mandy now to carry on with your career?
I don't know. You know, there was a good fighter I lost to. Just couldn't get out of the way. You know, we'll talk about it. I mean, she'll do what I feel is best, and yeah, but we'll have a chat and see where to go.
Apparently, you were praying twice before the fight tonight. I mean, were you conscious of the events of the last week, or is that something you always do?
I prayed, you know, 2 weeks before the fight. You know, I think you need help from somewhere, and that's the best place.
Being a cruiserweight for so long in your career, do you think that was a big difference tonight?
Very much so. It was a big move up. He was very big, very tall. You know, he just seemed too long, too strong. Couldn't get out of the way. It was a small ring. Everywhere I went, he was there, and I knew he was going to start fast. And you know, we were going to try and stick with him as long as we could, and then build from there. But just never got a chance. Should you have taken that fight then? I think so. You know, I was nominated #1 contender by the ABU, so you know, I was the mandatory contender. I've been a former world champion, and yeah, it was the right fight to take at this stage. I mean, I don't think I could have gotten the motivation to get back to work for a smaller fight.
What about Lennox Lewis? Where is this man going?
He's very good.
Why is he good?
He's big. He's strong. He has, you know, classy moves. He's a good fighter.
Do you see him up with the Holyfields and Tysons in terms of world titles?
Very much so. Yeah, I've been in and worked in my time with a lot of world-class fighters, and you know, none of them have done that to us.
Okay, Glenn. Sorry it's so short for you tonight, but at least you're safe and well.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thank you.